At Federal, we have products for every season and every pursuit. Our passionate and dedicated teams design, build, and deliver the world's best American-made ammunition, whether you're hunting, target shooting, or defending yourself and family. Our pride and hard work can be found in every box, ammo can, or bottle of ammunition. For us, it's always in season. It's Federal season.
Welcome to Federal Ammunition's podcast, It's Federal Season. I'm Jason Nash, VP of Marketing, along with Director of Media, Brian Kelvington. Our guest today, we're excited to have him, is Remi Warren, a Federal Ambassador. Now, Remi's a true outdoorsman. He started hunting and learning about conservation at a really young age. He consumed everything he could about the areas he hunted and the quarry available to him amid the mountainous landscapes. Most important, he began chronicling his adventures to share and inspire others to live the lifestyle. Remi, welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be able to kind of chat with you here.
So just a little bit of background that we picked up on Remi. After high school, he began working as a guide, outfitter, conservationist, writer, photographer, videographer, and TV personality. If that wasn't enough, he started Out West Outfitters in the Bitterroot Valley of Montana, where he specializes in elk and deer hunts on public land. He's since expanded to include booking hunts in New Zealand and Africa. To pile on top of that, Remi also hosts a podcast, Cutting the Distance with Remi Warren, appears on episodes of Meat Eater, and is the editor of Western Hunter magazine. So that all said, the first question out of the gate, Remi, is when do you find time to sleep?
I don't know. I've been wondering that myself, especially lately, because actually we're expecting our first child here. Her due date was yesterday, or 2 days ago. And so I've been trying to get a lot of stuff done before the baby's born. And I was thinking, man, I think when the baby's actually here, I'll get more sleep.
Man,
it sounds like a child might give you an opportunity to take a break.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, congrats. That's exciting. Best of luck.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. But it's just a lot of different stuff. I think that my philosophy has always been, I love every kind of aspect of hunting in the outdoors, and then being able to share it. And through that, I've kind of gotten into a lot of different things and kind of have a lot of different jobs. But it's all based around hunting and then sharing hunting knowledge. And something that I just am so obsessed with and love so much that it really doesn't even seem like work,
Yeah, that's the best kind of work, right? And, you kind of just answered our question, which is, you average 300 days of the year in the quote unquote wild. So I guess you truly do have to have a passion and an obsession for it to spend that much time doing it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, but now it's just more of like, it's our lifestyle, even with my wife and whatever. It's what we do. It's kind of how we live our life. And, it just is, it's cool to be able to kind of do that for work as well, where it doesn't even feel like it. Cause if it did feel like work, there is no way you could do it, because it's just, it'd be too daunting, I think.
Well, you're quoted, Remi, as saying all hunting knowledge is gained by trial and error. I think a lot of people can relate to that, but can you expand on what you mean with this premise?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is, it's like, even as a hunter, you just got to like be out there and do it and get those experiences and learn for yourself. I think that like there's certain tactics that work, and it's not a tactic. I mean, even tactics that were passed down or tactics that I tell people, it's like, I learned everything I know kind of by just being out there a lot and doing it. And I've kind of found ways that I think work really well, and I get to share those ways with other people. But I think it's just from days and days and days in the field. And I over the years too, I've noticed, like elk hunting, and when I was coming up elk hunting or a kid, and I'd read articles about elk hunting, I think, there was a lot of stuff that was just knowledge that was passed from one person to another person. And then as I got out there and started doing a lot of elk hunting and guiding, and I started thinking like, man, some of the stuff that's, people are saying is a little bit true, but not necessarily true. There's other things that I'm learning here by trying different things and just kind of hunting the way that I want to hunt. And I started to kind of develop these tactics that help make me more successful over time. And but I think that it's like no matter what you do, every time you go out into the woods, whether you're bird hunting, whether you're big game hunting, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Every time you go out, that's a very unique experience, and you're learning something every time. Whether you're successful, whether you're not successful, you learn probably just as much on the unsuccessful trips as you do the successful ones. But every time you go out, you're learning something new, and you're kind of building that repertoire of skills and abilities that you have to hopefully find more success in the future.
But what do you find most rewarding about this lifestyle beyond the gaining of knowledge via trial and error?
I think there's a couple things that I always kind of gravitate toward, and I like that. I like that feeling of adventure. I think that it's kind of something that gets lost in day-to-day life and other things. It's like when you're out, it doesn't matter how many mule deer hunts you've been on, whitetail hunts, whatever. Every day is kind of like different. It's its own little adventure. You never really know what you're going to encounter. You don't really know what the day is going to bring. And I think that there's that kind of element of it still feels it's just like this very primal feeling that you don't really get doing other stuff. Even like it's like you're running errands or doing whatever at work or whatever it is. There's like this feeling of being outside, being in the wild, out hunting that just feels very primal, very natural, and kind of like this mini adventure that you get to go on every time you're in the field.
One of the great things about you is you've got this outfitting business. What's one of the most challenging aspects of that in operating an outfitting business?
Yeah, I think like when it comes to the guiding stuff, I think that that's probably been the thing that's pushed, hunting skills further and further, because when it comes down to it, realistically, you're pretty much, or at least the way that I operate is like, I want the people that I'm taking out to be successful, but you're taking out somebody that probably doesn't have the same physical ability as you, doesn't have the same skill set as you. And so you really have to kind of develop your hunting skills based on like getting other people that don't have the same skills as you to be successful. And so you kind of find ways to make things easier in some ways. You kind of have like these challenges that don't present itself when you're out hunting for yourself. And that's kind of been the challenge, is like, being like giving somebody else the same success that I could have, even though they haven't spent as much time hiking around. Maybe they aren't as in good a shape. So that's always a challenge, is like getting like finding success when that person maybe doesn't have the same skill set that you have. And it's like a challenge, but it's also kind of like very rewarding when it does work out, when they do get something. It's almost most of the time I'm actually more excited when somebody else that I take out is successful than if I were out hunting myself and successful myself. There's just kind of like this, you kind of pat yourself on the back. You're like, okay, cool. That was good. It was hard. It was difficult for me to be able to do that, but it was a lot of fun and really exciting. And then to get to share in that experience with someone else is pretty rewarding. So I'd say it's like a hard part, but also probably the most rewarding part as well.
Yeah, no, you don't have to name names, but if you had some pretty difficult clients, I've heard some horror stories over.
Yeah. Every guide, it's funny too, because like when guides get together, that's all you tell. You only tell your horrible stories. But I mean, 100. Like, to be honest, they're very few and far between. I think just generally hunters are we're just like a really good group of people. We've got good values. We enjoy the same things. We love the outdoors, and it's just really easy to relate with. And I would say like 99% of the time, maybe even 99.9% of the time, it's an incredible experience. But as like when you're out hunting and maybe you're stuck with a person for a week, maybe even longer, and who knows, like maybe it's a backpack hunt where you're in a tent and it's like you don't know this person, and they could be a very difficult individual or whatever. And so there's always those guide stories of like just I don't even know, like things that go wrong, rodeos. There's always those stories of guys that are they can just be complete a-holes or whatever. And those are always the stories we tell because they're funny, they're entertaining, and it's like, it's a way to just get it off your chest. And it's probably the stories that most guys hear, but that's not actually like the standard day to day, but it does happen. It's probably good to tell those stories too, because guys thinking about like, oh, I want to be a hunting guide. That sounds great. It's like, yeah, you are going to have to learn how to deal with difficult people. And you're going to have some funny stories at the end, but it makes it worth it.
Sounds like an Outdoor Channel possibility for a new show on Outfitter Secrets.
Yeah, exactly. Like the stories, if you could just record the stories that guides tell other guides, you'd have some pretty good stories. I think some stories, you couldn't even keeping the person's identity secret, you couldn't even share some of the stories because it's probably, I don't even know. But I think that there's always some good ones. One that I like to tell is I had these guys I was guiding an elk hunt, and these guys were from, I think, New York. And so it was just kind of like, we went over everything, we shot the guns, all this stuff, getting ready for the hunt, explaining like, okay, every night like the night before the hunt, we kind of do a brief, like, here's what we're going to pack. You're going to pack up your bag. We're going to bring waters, lunches, extra ammunition, your rifle, I'll have the spotting scope, whatever. So we go out in the morning, and I've got the guys, and they're just really slow getting everything together. And I knew that the elk it's late in the season, but I knew the elk were going to be like up at very crack of light, and they're going to go into the timber, and we needed to spot them before they went into the timber so we could go set up, because they're going to be pretty slow walking. So I was like, well, I got to find where these elk are so we can spend all day getting to where they go into the timber and wait for them to come back out in the evening. So we get set up. I park the truck, and they're just taking too long. And I'm like, hey guys, I gotta get up here. Otherwise we're going to waste an entire day. So I said, this road it's a gated road. You just walk it. I'm going to be out here a little ways, and you should be able to just going to be sitting there, find me. So I go up ahead, and I'm sitting there glassing, and I see the elk and watching him go in the timber. I'm just kind of glassing the elk, waiting for the guys to walk up behind me. And I hear this noise. What is that noise? Just like cattle. I was like, the noise did not make sense. And when the guys came up behind me, they were all over their backpacks. It sounded like Santa's reindeer coming down. They had bells strapped all over their backpacks. And I turn around, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, oh, well, they're bear bells. We don't want to get attacked by bears. And we read that you're supposed to put bells on your back. And they had bells, all like every strap that could have a bell had a bell. 3 of these guys just jangling around the mountain. I was like, sorry to inform you guys. First of all, we're hunting elk. We need to be quiet. Second of all, I'm not really sure those bells would work. And third, you all have 300 Win Mags. That will protect you from the bear. So we immediately took all the bells off the pack, and then slowly made our way up to the elk to wait for them to come out in the evening. So it was pretty good. We actually did get on those elk, but unfortunately, one of the guy that had the shot missed. So.
Oh man, that's a new one. I've never heard that before. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, man, what is it, Chris? I was like, my brain, it's just like, I'm like, focused on finding these elk, watching these elk. I'm looking through the spotting scope, and I hear that noise, and it's like my brain did not register. It's like, what the heck is that?
That is that's a definite reason why Google doesn't always work.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a great leads in really nicely to another topic we wanted to get your thoughts on. Is there are a lot of new people getting out in the outdoors, and more people are hunting now, which is great for our industry. And a lot of people who hadn't hunted in a while are getting back out. So, when people are preparing to get out, other than not wearing bells, is there any other fundamental that you would advice that you'd give them on how to prepare?
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially for new people, I think it's always good, kind of really think about the safety aspect of hunting, and understand the, just like the kind of the nuances of how to be safe in the field. I think that's one thing I see with new hunters is like, muzzle control, gun control, being familiar with whatever they're hunting with. spending time at the range and just kind of like, I think there's a lot of things that you do that you kind of practice for, and then it comes to hunting, and people are like, "Well, I just grabbed the rifle off the shelf and went out hunting with it." And it's like, well, you should take it to you should kind of have some forethought before you go out. I think hunting's like a very serious thing. You've got a firearm, you're taking a life, so there's like a lot of steps in the process. And so just taking a little bit of time to familiarize yourself to be proficient with whatever you're shooting, like those are always really good things for new hunters to think about. It's like opening day shouldn't be the first time that you shoot your gun. And it sounds really weird, but if you've hunted forever, you think, oh, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I sight in my rifle, I do all this. I've had multiple people show up at camps where I've guided, and we always like, first thing we do, we go shoot their rifle at the range.
Mhm.
And I've had people like shoot, and it's like it's not even hitting the plywood that's set out there at 100 yards. And I'm like, man, something got messed up. And they're like, no, it got sighted in when I got it. I was like, this rifle is sighted in, right? Yeah. Well, come to find out, it was like bore sighted at the sporting goods shop.
Mhm.
Never had a round been fired, never had it been actually sighted in. And you think that's funny, but that's probably happened to me more than a dozen times, of guys just like saying like, oh yeah, it's good to go. I bought it, and the guy bore sighted it, and it's ready to roll. So those kind of things, like new hunters. But you think about it, it's like if nobody told you that doesn't work, how would you really know, I guess?
Right.
So I think that's something. It's just like, like really kind of taking the time to be prepared to learn about what you're going to be doing, especially if you're going out on your own, and then trying to connect with hunters that have done it before. That's probably the hardest part for new hunters, but I think as like hunters, it's always good to mentor someone else. I always try to mentor a couple new hunters every year, kids or people that I know, or get somebody else into it, but teach them, because I think the way that I started hunting was somebody kind of taught me, showed me the ropes, got me started. And I think those things that you can learn from someone are so valuable, and you can learn it so fast. It's stuff you can't really pick up in a book sometimes. It's just the common sense things that hunters know, but a new hunter might not think about.
Yeah, and we love to razz each other as hunters, and we have to remember that if somebody new like that, it's it's a teaching moment. It's not time to make fun of them, because
yeah,
I mean, if you haven't been around it, you don't know. So that's a good reason to go with a guide or connect with somebody who knows.
Yeah, definitely.
Remi, having said that, what about some of the pre-trip routines that you use that could help some of our listeners?
I mean, every trip's a little bit different, I mean, from like the preparation standpoint. I mean, my big thing, like almost everything I do is Western big game hunting, or like not necessarily Western, but that style, like mountain hunting. So in the off season, I try to stay in good shape, because I know that, one, it's going to really benefit me for like just going day in and day out. And then when I shoot something, I've got to carry it back to the truck. So just having that like physical ability and staying fit is always nice. And then outside of that, I mean, whatever I'm hunting with, whether it be a bow, whether it be a rifle, whatever it is, I try to, get out to the range, practice a lot, just be super proficient. So when that moment does come where I can take a shot, I'm ready. And then just when it comes to like gear prep, I have to, like, packing's always been that thing that I just hate the most. I actually just, like, in the past, I hated it so much. I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna just go out, and I'll just like, okay, whatever. I just get by with what I have and didn't really think about it. Because of that, I got pretty good at like survival situations. But outside of that, like now I like have a really organized list, and every trip has like kind of like a packing list, and I can really start to think about it, say, this is what I'm going to take, this is what I'm not going to take, especially when I'm planning like maybe a trip that's 5 people into Alaska that we're filming or something like that. None of the other people have been on that kind of trip, so I really kind of nail down those packing lists and try to make sure everybody's comfortable and we have everything we need and we don't forget anything. So that's something that I do as well, just like a lot of prep work and a lot of packing. And then like backcountry hunts, I go as far as like planning out every day's meals and separating them into bags, so then when I'm out there, it's already rationed for me, and I can kind of just go off of that.
That's a great tip. And you, along with the other meat eater team members create a lot of educational material that's been very helpful. And as a federal ambassador, we appreciate the content that you share with our fans. And I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag, but there's a really great video I just saw about making a Chick-fil-A sandwich, which looks delicious.
Oh yeah.
But you touch a lot on field dressing, to the point of cooking and butchering. Are there any tips? Because that's one of the most daunting things about hunting is actually with big game, having to handle the game when you're done. Is there any tips on hunters and maximizing the meat on the animal?
Yeah, I mean, like for utilization, I think, and I think probably this is many people's experiences. When I grew up, I really loved hunting, but to be fair, my family was terrible at cooking wild game. It wasn't good. It was gamey. It was whatever. And as I got older and started cooking and the cooking myself, I started to just like realize it's like, wow, wild game is actually way better. It just has to be kind of prepared in a way that's familiar and also good. And so I think kind of one of the things is just understanding the difference between wild game and domestic meat, and the major difference is it's not as fatty. So you kind of got to treat it like it's something that's very lean, but it doesn't have that fat. And then the other thing is, incorporate it into every kind of meal that you have. So you can, whatever you like, just because it's wild game, you don't have to cook it the same way every time. You can explore, you can try different things. You can have some of the same stuff that you eat day in and day out, or some of your favorite things just utilized with wild game meat. You said like the Chick-fil-A sandwich. So it was just essentially chucker. You could do it with quail, you could do it with pheasant, and making a Chick-fil-A sandwich out of wild game meat. And to be honest, it's a lot better. I've like toyed with the idea of like sitting out in front of Chick-fil-A and serving my Chick-fil-A for free and seeing how many people are like, wow, this is actually way, way better.
Yeah, see how long you'd last before they shuffled you off.
Yeah, exactly.
I like how you talk about adapting to traditional recipes. I mean, I know coming back from Quebec a few times when there was a caribou hunting season, we'd come back and make caribou chili. Oh, the caribou chili is so good. It's probably one of my favorite wild game recipes was caribou chili.
It's funny. Caribou like makes the best chili. I don't know what it is about caribou. I think caribou has like its own unique flavor, and it's not lost in the chili. Like it's not a bad flavor. It's just a unique flavor. And I think that like caribou chili is probably the best chili you can make, honestly.
Wow, somebody other than my wife finally agrees with me on something like that, on a topic like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've had, because there's so much seasoning and everything in chili that you lose the flavor of whatever you're cooking in it. And for some reason, like caribou, like the best part of that flavor kind of carries through in that chili. I kind of think of caribou meat as like the lamb of the north. It's like, how lamb has a lamb flavor. It's not a bad flavor. It's just lamb is very unique in the way that it tastes. Caribou is the same way. It doesn't taste bad. It just tastes unique,
Okay.
especially later in the season.
So, what about some simple pointers when you're considering prepping game like deer, elk, and moose? I mean, is there some do's and don'ts that are just easily obtainable for hunters, for especially new hunters?
Yeah, I think the first thing, like red meat, let's say it's like venison, elk, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Red game meat. You just don't want to, well, any game meat, aside from maybe like some of the different birds, but you don't want to overcook it. And I think that that's the problem is, you got to realize like it's not like a beef steak. It's not like pork. It's different. And the fact that it doesn't have a lot of fat lends it to being really, really good if it's not overcooked. Once it's overcooked, it kind of gets chewy, it gets gamey, it gets whatever the bad connotations are, but not overcooking it is step one. I'd say that's step two. We got to go back because the number one thing is like taking care of it well in the field really kind of determines how well it's going to be at the table. So when you do get something down, you have to go through the process of processing it quickly and efficiently. You gut it if you're that's what you do, or whether you do that or the gutless method doesn't really matter. But get the hide off, get the meat separated, boned out, cooled down, and then taken care of. Keep it dry, keep it dirt free, keep it cool, and don't like, I mean, there's so many times where I've had people say, pronghorn antelope is the worst meat. And it's like, well, if you really look at the way they hunted, they're hunting in August. So they shot the antelope. They maybe made a bad shot. It ran out. They went there. They gutted it, but it was whatever, gut shot or something like that. Then they drag it through the sagebrush, 300, 400, 500 yards to the back of the truck. And they load it in the back of the truck. It's hot out, and they drive around the rest of the day looking for another antelope or doing whatever. Then they get to camp and they let it hang, and then they skin it. And then they throw it in the back of the truck again and drive home, and dust's all over it. It's like, if you did that with Kobe beef, it'd be disgusting, So it's like, when it comes down to the final product, I would say 90% of it is just the field care of it. So being really familiarizing yourself with good field care methods, keeping everything cool, clean, and dry, and then taking care of it promptly, and like treating that meat like it should be treated. Like, imagine it's like, okay, when you run a beef through a slaughterhouse, it goes from shot to processed immediately. And, you got to kind of consider, like, do the same thing in the field no matter what. And that is definitely possible and easy to do once you kind of understand the process. So I think that has a lot to do with the quality of everything that you cook in the long run.
So let's talk. You mentioned a little bit already about staying in shape, but fitness and exercise, I mean, you're passionate about that. What are some easy preseason routines that hunters should think about, as part of their preparation for the season?
Yeah, I mean, really, like, the best way is to do by doing. It's like, if you're going on a hunt where you're going to be hiking around and carrying a backpack, that's what you should do, because you could do all the swimming, you need to get your endurance and other things up, and there's other things you could supplement. But one of the best things you could do is hike around with a weighted pack on, if that's the kind of hunt that you're going to do. Just practice by doing whatever you're going to be doing. Build those muscles specifically for that. And I think I'm always like a big proponent of that. And it's fun. You can go out on the weekends, you can put a pack on, you can go hike around, or it's something maybe you could do in a gym on an incline treadmill or something like that. But just getting used to carrying a pack on, carrying a little bit of weight on your back, and walking uphill, that's really big when it comes to, Western big game type hunting or mountain type hunting. It's just like, so you're familiar, and your body develops that muscle memory for kind of the activity that you're going to be doing the most while you're out there.
That's great advice, Remi. And I'm going to utilize that advice too as I getting ready for elk hunt. And I do like the treadmill personally, so I'm going to add some weight to a pack. And they'll, at the club, they'll look at me like, what is that guy doing? Well, getting ready.
Yeah, exactly. Getting ready. Yeah. Yep. You put that treadmill on an incline and get your heart rate up, and just get your body used to getting fatigued with that pack on. And one thing that I found too, it's like, okay, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I can just walk out my back door and climb a mountain. But I know that like 90% of the population can't do that. So one thing that I suggest is, like, kind of mimic you can kind of speed things up. So you can just, go to that point where you're exerting yourself, your heart rate's getting higher, you've got that pack on, and you start to feel those stress points. Your shoulders start to get sore, your back starts to get sore. And once that starts to happen, then just keep pushing and pushing, and try to, like, get your recovery up, because then what's going to happen is those muscles are going to say, okay, these are the muscles that we're activating. This is how we use these muscles when they get tired. And over the long run, you'll kind of build that endurance for it. It works pretty well.
The last time we had some of your meat eater friends on, Steven and Giannis, we did a little rapid fire. So we think we're going to continue that tradition since you're on today.
Cool.
And so all you need to do is answer with what comes to your mind first.
This could be dangerous.
Yeah, it could be dangerous. What's your favorite animal to hunt?
Mule deer or sheep.
What's your favorite animal to eat and prepare?
Elk and axis deer.
Soccer, rugby, or American football?
Soccer.
Favorite caliber for deer species?
300 Winchester short mag.
If you were stranded on a mountainside, what's the item you cannot survive without?
Shelter.
Wine, beer, or whiskey?
Ooh. Mixture of all three.
That's a good answer.
That's like a variation of the three wise men.
Exactly.
Yeah. Call it a desert storm where I'm from.
What's your favorite seasoning for an elk steak?
Montreal.
Yes or no to steak sauce?
Yes.
A1, Heinz 57, or homemade?
Mixture of all three.
Hunting or fishing, and why?
Hunting, but I do love fishing. And I don't know, fishing gets you so far, but there's just a little bit more of an experience when it comes to hunting. But I do love fishing.
All right. If so, you say fishing, you mentioned fishing. I'll just go one step deeper. Fly fishing or casting topwater lures like a plastic frog at sunrise with smoky water?
Oh, dang, man. I was doing topwater yesterday, but I was also fly fishing topwater. So I got to go fly fishing.
Favorite bird to hunt, turkey, duck, or pheasant?
Ducks.
And last question before we wrap up this segment. You kind of hinted to it. But where are you at becoming that first time father? Do we have the bags packed? Do you have the diaper bag ready to go? The go kit's all ready?
Dude, ready to rock and roll. I got my tactical dad vest on, bottles and diapers and wipies. I'm ready. I'm ready to roll.
You got all the onesies picked out too, and the outfit to come home with.
Oh yeah, we got it all. We're ready.
The carrier.
Yep.
Well,
we could hit the go button right now, and I'm like, sweet, ready to rock and roll.
Well, thanks, Remi. We'll be back here in a minute with our Tech Talk segment.
Yeah, sounds good.
Meet the industry's widest variety of game-changing ammunition. However you shoot, and whatever you hunt, fortune favors the prepared. And nothing prepares you better than Federal Premium. It's a gold standard advantage delivered directly from the experts in premium ammunition. Find your Federal Premium advantage today.
Welcome back to It's Federal Season and our technology segment, Tech Talk.
Thank you, Remi, for coming back for another segment to talk specifically about judging a whitetail or mule deer in the field. Being an outfitter, this is an important element when helping customers determine if a deer is what they're looking for, if inches are a consideration. So first off, could you explain for the audiences the scoring standards for a whitetail deer, and what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, so generally scoring systems, kind of when we talk about scoring, it's off the Boone and Crockett or Pope and Young scoring system, same system, but what it's doing is it's totaling up kind of the inches of antler, and then there's length of main beams, length of all the tines, and then inside width measurement, and then 4 mass circumferences. So it's totaling all that up, and it gives you a good idea of how that deer compares to other deer. Now, when it comes to field judging, what you're doing is you're trying to kind of take this difficult system of all these numbers and looking at an animal on the hoof and saying, how much does that deer score? And there's some different ways that I go about doing that.
How do you approach the conversation with clients on what to look for in a trophy? Because everybody measures trophy differently, and that's what's great about the system. But what do you tell a client when he's making that determination on what to win or what to shoot?
Yeah, I always say don't get hooked up on numbers. Find what you want. You're going to be the one that's looking at that animal for the rest of your life, probably. It's going to be on your wall. It's not on my wall. It's not on anybody else's wall. It's whatever you're happy with, because sometimes trophy is just, hey, we had a really hard hunt. We struggled to find a deer, and this buck came out and it was like the right day or the right time. Or I know a lot of guys, it's like, hey, I was hunting with my dad and I had a great tag, but my dad was there and he happened to be there that day and I was able to take this deer, and that deer means more to me than anything. So when you say trophy, it's really just beauty's in the eye of the beholder. There's a score system, but to be 100% honest, that score system doesn't really mean anything compared to the experience had and what you're looking for. So, every time I go out or I kind of suggest this, it's like, this is your hunt. It's not my hunt. It's not anyone else's hunt. So, whatever you're really looking for, that's a trophy to you, and that's what we'll look for.
So I guess that said, when, if someone's out learning this and, they want to at least understand what the trophy or, what the deer quality is. I mean, what kind of things do you look for in terms of maturity of the deer? How do you tell the age? Just at a glance, is there a quick tip for what people should look for on antlers?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, like when it comes to mule deer, we're just looking for you can tell like the body shape and profile of the deer for an older, more mature deer. You can also tell by the way they act and the way that they're running off the other deer, especially during the rut. But most of the time, more barreled chest is like a deer that looks more like, especially mule deer, when they start looking more square. That's when they start to hit more maturity. Then when it comes to like getting a basic idea of antler size, the method I use is what we call like rack bracketing. And that just essentially is from putting my hands on a lot of antlers and scoring a lot of deer, you kind of just build these mental pictures. There's ways that you can, if you're starting out, you can kind of measure the antlers based on the body proportions. So like mule deer will use the ears, and the standard ear length of 8 inches. And when they're kind of semi-alert, the width would be like 22 inches. And it depends on where you're at, the exact sizes. And sometimes, you go as far as understanding the distance of the eye to the tip of the nose, and you can kind of use those as references to score the deer up. But I think the best system would be, if you're concerned about the score, is just to start measuring as many antlers as you can, shed antlers, anything, and really being familiar with the score system. So when you look at an antler that you know the score of, you can immediately compare that to something in the field. I would say it's the one that takes the longest to kind of understand, but it's extremely accurate, and it's just the fastest because you don't really have to think about it. You can look at a deer and say, oh, I know exactly what that deer will score, or be within an inch or two, because you've scored so many different antlers. And that's the best way to do it, in my opinion. It takes a little bit longer, but I don't know. I think it's a pretty good system to use.
And you just had a great blog using camera on your smartphone to help field judge deer. Can you walk the audience through that?
Yeah, definitely. So when you're getting started, a good way is just, once you familiarize yourself with the score system, say you're out there, you take your cell phone, your smartphone, your camera, whatever, take a picture of the deer. And then I kind of use I call it like a scale, like a measurement to scale. So whatever zoom level that picture is. So say you take the picture through your spotting scope, you got the deer there, then you can zoom in on it and just leave it at that specific zoom level, because you don't want to change the scale of it. Then I'll grab either a piece of paper, or even if I'm in the field, sometimes I'll just use pine needle or something like that. And I'll use those reference points that I talked about. So let's use the ears, for example. In my area where I guide, the mule deer ears are generally about 7.5 to 8 inches. And that's from the inside of the ear to like if you're looking at the ear front on like the inside portion to the tip. Antler span 20 to 22 inches, kind of when they're in that semi-alert position. And then the eye diameter is what I use a lot. So it's about 1.3 inches. And so what I can do is I can use that stick or paper. Paper works really well, especially if you got a little pen. You make say an 8-inch ruler based on the scale of that ear. So I can go 8 inches and I mark it, and I fold that little paper in half. That half would be 4 inches, fold that in half, and that's, you can break it out and actually make a little ruler right there on your camera with that piece of paper. Then you double it. You got 16 inches, whatever. So then you've got a ruler at that, and you can put it right on the screen and start measuring up your buck. And it works really well with kind of pretty much any species. It works good. I can do the same thing on trail camera pictures or whatever. And it's a really good way to just get a good idea of how long is that time, and how wide is that buck? How much mass circumference should I start to calculate in? And by doing that, you can kind of just start tallying it up right there on your phone, right there on your camera. It works really well.
If you want to see this visually, you can go to Remi's website, remiwarren.com, and you can click on the blog tab. Also, if you want to follow Federal's channels, you can see a lot more of his educational, entertaining content, especially the cooking content from Remi, and check out that chucker recipe that he had. Remi, thanks so much for joining us today, and we wish you best of luck on becoming a new dad.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Yeah, it was great to have you, Remi. Thank you.
There's a time and a place for every season. This is that time, and these are those special places. When preparation gives way to anticipation, rituals, and traditions. Friends, family, forever. This is what you live for. It's time to celebrate the annual tradition like no other. It's federal season.
Welcome back to It's Federal Season and the News and Notes segment.
I'm Brian Kelvington, and it was great to see all the outdoor fans at the DUX Festival in Fort Worth, Texas, the weekend of June 25th through the 27th. As shows continue to come back online, we look forward to connecting with you at the events like the Buckmasters Expo coming up August 20th through the 22nd in Montgomery, Alabama, Game Fair in Ramsey, Minnesota, the weekends of August 13th through the 15th, and August 20th through the 22nd. Finally, the big celebration will be in Houston, Texas, as Federal and all the outdoor ammunition brands will attend NRA's annual meetings and exhibits. This year is a milestone event as the NRA is celebrating its 150th anniversary. We look forward to seeing you, the fans of Federal and all the ammunition brands, from Vista Outdoor at the Lone Star State.
If you like the It's Federal Season podcast, be sure to let us know by filling out a rating and review on iTunes. And remember, for us, it's always in season. It's Federal Season.